We quickly pulled ourselves out of the Iran deal. We moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We passed the largest set of sanctions against a country in a generation with North Korea. But the most important thing that we did is we took the kick me sign off of our backs, and the United States was respected again. And now I'm running for president, and I don't need to tell you how bad things are. You don't need to turn on the news to see it. You can go to the grocery store and you feel it. You can talk to your kids when they come home from school and they'll tell you. We are 31, almost $32 trillion in debt. We are having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. Now, I've always spoken hard truths, and I'm going to do that with you today. It would be easy for me to say, Biden did that to us. But our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and you look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that passed with no accountability whatsoever. Expanded welfare, leaving us with 90 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. And did Republicans try and make it right once they made that mistake? No, they doubled down on it and opened up earmarks for the first time in 10 years. Pushing through 7,000 of them in December. Want to know how they spent your money? $7.5 million on horse racing in Arizona, $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million on a courthouse in Colorado, and the list goes on. All while 1 in 6 households can't pay their utility bill. 60% of Americans are in credit card debt. Social Security goes bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare goes bankrupt in 5. So when you see this debt discussion that's happening now, know that it's a national, bipartisan disgrace. There are no saints in Washington. They did this to all of us. Then you look at our education system. Everybody wants to tell you that COVID did that to us. No, we had problems with education before COVID. Pre-COVID, 70% of 8th graders in our country were not proficient in reading. Think about that. 67% of 8th graders were not proficient in math. The numbers were worse 2 weeks ago in history and civics. Then you go and you add 2 years of lockdowns and our kids are in a world of hurt. Yet they'll tell you, 90% of them will tell you that they've still gone through critical race theory, which if a little girl goes into kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad. If she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough and she's always going to be a victim. We have biological boys playing in girls' sports. It is the women's issue of our time. Where is everybody? My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have that conversation with her. How do we go tell our girls that they should be comfortable with a biological boy in their locker room? You can't. Yet everybody wants to know why a third of our teenage girls last year seriously contemplated suicide? What are we doing to them? We're supposed to be growing strong girls. You look at the crime situation around our country, people are worried about their children riding their bikes down the street. They're worried they're going to get carjacked going to a restaurant. And then there's illegal immigration. Now, I'm the only candidate that's actually gone to the border this cycle. And I didn't pull a Kamala go and come back. I went 400 miles down that border. You're not ready for what I saw. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you go watch news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anyone died crossing their fence. They'd pick up any little kids that were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. Mounds of clothes, mounds of shoes, paraphernalia. There are areas that are rape centers for the women and girls that come across. When I talked to the sheriffs, they said before 7 a.m., they round up how many illegal immigrants they can, turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. When I talked to Border Patrol and asked them about their jobs, they said, "You want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our jobs." 5 million illegal immigrants. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number one cause of death, adults 18 to 49, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. Then you look at our national security. Did you ever think we'd look at the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon looking back at us? Now, I know South Carolina has beautiful beaches, but that's not why that balloon went over our state. It's because we're a strong military state. And what do we do about it? Nothing. You've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got Iran building a bomb. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had the debacle in Afghanistan. My husband is a combat veteran. He deployed to Afghanistan. We just found out he's getting deployed again. The idea that he had to watch, and his military brothers and sisters had to watch America leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. You remember when the Russian plane hit our U.S. drone a few weeks ago? What did we do about it? Nothing. China's on the march. They're building up their military. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have more air defense systems than we do. They just came out with the 5th generation fighter jet. How'd they get it? Stealing our intellectual property. We handed it to them on a silver platter. They steal $600 billion worth of intellectual property from us every year. You go and you look at the fact that President Xi started a commission that said any company that does business in China has to cooperate with the Chinese military. Think about our tech companies. Think about all of your financial data. Think about all of your healthcare data. Think about your children's lifestyle data. And now know that the Chinese military has it. President Xi said whoever owns the data will rule the world. That's what he's trying to do. They bought up 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. What are we doing? So that's a lot of bad, right? It's hard to find any good. But now I'm going to tell you what I told South Carolinians when I became governor. No more whining. No more complaining. Now we get to work. How do we fix it? Let's start with our economy. The first thing we do is we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. The second thing we do is rather than the 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID money that we know was fraudulent. If our interest is 8%, quit borrowing. It's supposed to be 15% in 10 years. Cut up the credit cards. Don't ever let them tell you Republicans and Democrats don't agree on anything because they love to waste your money. cut up the credit cards, stop the borrowing. We will stop the borrowing, we will stop the spending, we will stop the earmarks, and we will make sure that I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID numbers. That's what we need to be looking at. This debt limit agreement, all they're doing is piling on to that surge of spending that happened during COVID. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. They're going to add on $4 trillion more in 2 years? That's not a deal. We'll get that under control, and we'll remind them that it's our money, not their money. The next thing, when it comes to education, what we knew in South Carolina was if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we held them back. We did reading remediation with their parents. We made sure that they did summer programs, and we set them up for success. We will do that across this country to get our kids back on track. And there will be total transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever have to wonder what is being taught or said to their child, ever. Every parent will be able to decide where their child goes to school. They should not be dependent on a zip code. We'll have school choice across our country. And we'll start building things in America again. We'll put vocational classes in our high schools so that the kids can learn how to build what we're making. I had apprenticeships all over South Carolina, and we taught our kids how to make those things that we were building. We'll do that across the country, and when it comes to our universities, we'll tell them you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of you taking both are over. We'll get that Chinese infiltration out of our universities. When it comes to crime, it's simple. We'll have the backs of our law enforcement, and we'll take the numbers of our criminals and make examples of them. And we will go to our prosecutors and tell them that they have to prosecute according to the law. No more weak penalties. And when it comes to illegal immigration, when I was governor, we passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We did a mandatory E-Verify program that required businesses to have to prove who they hired was here legally. We will do a national E-Verify program. We will make sure we defund sanctuary cities once and for all. Hell yeah! We will go back to remain in Mexico because guess what? Nobody wants to remain in Mexico. We will keep the provisions of Title 42, and instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's how you fix the illegal immigration problem. And when it comes to national security, we will let countries know what we expect of them, and we'll stop being reactionary. There were 2 things when I was at the United Nations that Russia, China, and our enemies never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We will do both of those things immediately. No more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia, no more getting dirty oil from Venezuela. And we will make sure that we have a strong military, because strong militaries don't start wars, strong militaries prevent wars. You know, when I was at the United Nations, and the whole world condemned us for moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, I was proud to cast the first American veto in several years. But I was mad, right? Because America can put our embassy anywhere we want. We always put it in the capital of every country. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, so we were acknowledging a truth. But 128 countries voted against us that day. So I went to my office and I told my staff, I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries, Then I want you to list the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind. He's flipping pages, he's yelling out countries, and what I said to him was, I'm not saying we give foreign aid based on a percentage vote at the UN, but that should be one of the things we look at. Quit trying to buy friends. Quit trying to pay off enemies. You know, we gave $50 billion in foreign aid last year. Do you want to know who we gave it to? Pakistan, that harbored terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. Iraq, that has Iranian influence that says death to America every day. Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country there is. Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. We gave money to communist Cuba, who we named a state sponsor of terrorism. And the one that makes me sick to my stomach, we gave money to China. How weak do we look? When I'm president, we will no longer give money to countries that hate America. So we have the solutions that we need to fix things, and we'll get it done. But the one thing I worry about more than anything else is this national self-loathing that has taken over our country. The idea that they say America's bad or that America's rotten or racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our children need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance when they start school every day. We need to go back to our national purpose, and that's when we have others join us. Do you remember when you were growing up? Do you remember how simple life was? Do you remember how safe it felt? It was about faith, family, and country. Your parents raised you to be a responsible individual. You went to school and you learned what you needed to be successful. You went to church or your house of worship, and that's where you found your faith and your conscience. Don't you want that again? Because we could have that again. Don't think we've lost that. We haven't lost it. But to get it back, it's going to take a lot of courage from every person in this room. Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what you get in a general if you don't play in this primary, because it matters. It is time for a new generational leader. It is time to leave the negativity and the baggage behind us and move forward once and for all. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win a majority of Americans. Our solutions are the right ones. We focus on lifting up everybody. But we've got to start winning general elections again. But when you do that, it's a story of addition. The Republican Party has started siphoning people off. That's not how we win. We win by adding people in. You go to Hispanics, you go to the Asian community, you go to the Jewish community, you go to women, you go to African Americans. I know it because I did it in South Carolina. You don't go to them and say you should be with us. You go to them and say, what do you care about? Guess what? They all care about their kids' education. They all care about opportunities for their kids that they didn't have. They all want a safe America that's strong abroad. My parents were Democrats until Reagan. Not because they were actually Democrats, but because Republicans didn't talk to them. That has to change. That will change. Someone asked me why I was doing this, and I said, my parents came to this country 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice means something, that we do love our country, that we do value our freedom. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. I'm doing this for my son who's a junior in college, and I've watched him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 78% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. We've got a country to save. I'm not going to be okay with that. But we could do this. We could fix it. All we have to do is commit. Commit to saying enough. Commit to saying no complaining. Commit to saying no whining. Commit to saying now we're going to move forward. Don't let the media tell you who to be for and who not to be for. And I can give you a fact. The polls you see today are not the polls you're going to see a year from now. Look at every presidential election that's happened in history. So this is what I'll tell you. When I first ran against that longest serving legislator in a primary, people laughed at me. And I got to work and earned their support, and I won. When I ran for governor, I actually ran against a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, a very popular congressman, and a state senator. I was Nikki Haley. I had 3% in the polls. I had the least amount of money. And I worked that state like no one else. And we won. When I went to the United Nations, they said I didn't have enough experience. And I got to work and took the kick me sign off of our backs. I have been underestimated at everything I've ever done. And it's a blessing because it makes me scrappy and it makes me work hard. No one will outwork me in this race because we've got a country to save. And I don't trust anybody else to fix it. So if you like what I've had to say today, go tell 10 people. Go tell them to go to NikkiHaley.com. Tell them to invest, tell them to volunteer, tell them to participate. If you don't like what I've had to say today, shh. Just don't tell anyone you were here. God bless you. Thank you very much.